Have you been seeing people walking around with the new iPhone 17 Pro Max and feeling some serious FOMO about it? Well, we're not exactly here for a therapy session, but we are going to take a deep dive into the design, display, performance, battery, and cameras so you can see exactly what kind of upgrades you're skipping out on by not grabbing a new model. Hey, I'm Olive, your host here at Versus.com. Design-wise, the iPhone 17 Pro Max is the only one that rocks a different look from the rest. For some people, that might be all the reason they need to grab the new model, just to show it off. But others might not be into that kind of chunky Lego piece camera setup on the back, or maybe that Fanta shade color option. Material-wise, the 17 Pro Max features an aluminium unibody with a ceramic shield glass window on the back for wireless charging. The 16 Pro Max and the 15 Pro Max come with matte titanium frames, whereas the 14 Pro Max uses polished stainless steel instead. All these three also feature frosted glass on their backs. We think that switch from titanium to aluminium on the 17 Pro Max is a downgrade, as aluminium scratches easier and it doesn't feel as premium as the previous models. Sure, Apple claims it helps with thermals, but honestly, most people won't even notice that tiny difference in cooling anyway. For weight, the 15 Pro Max is the featherweight champ here, coming in at only 222 grams. All four phones come with IP68 protection rating, so they're totally dust tight and can survive being yeeted into water up to 6 meters deep for a full 30 minutes. So as always, let's check in with the team and see who likes which design best.
The 14.
The 15.
The 17 Pro Max.
The 17.
The 15.
The 16. What's about you?
I'm also gonna go for the 16. All right, now let's check out these displays. Both the 17 and 16 Pro Max are rocking 6.9-inch panels, while the 15 and 14 Pro Max are just a tiny bit smaller at 6.7 inches. However, the iPhone 17 Pro Max has a new anti-reflective coating for better visibility. Still, all four use LTPO OLED technology and can go from 1 Hz all the way to 120 Hz. We threw them under simulated sunlight at over 100,000 lux and measured the typical high brightness using a full white screen. To be honest, there wasn't a giant difference between them in typical brightness, but the peak brightness on the 17 Pro Max was definitely much higher than the other three. For security, you've got that fancy dynamic island with Face ID on all four of these Pro Max models. Now, for even more info on screen specs, feel free to pause the video right here. Overall, the displays on the older iPhones are not bad at all, but the 17 Pro Max pulls ahead with that cool anti-reflective coating and that seriously high peak brightness, making it the obvious best choice out of these four Pro Max beasts. But a great screen isn't everything, so let's crank up the volume and check out the speakers. All four of these iPhones come equipped with stereo speakers, and it might look like they got 2 speakers at the bottom, but in reality, one of those grills is reserved for the microphones.
I'm a little too into you. Got my head over my shoes, but I like it. I'm a little too into you. Got me up over the moon, but I like it. I'm counting colors in your eyes. I'm losing track of all my time. It's like I'm high. Tried not to slip into your blue, but I've been slipping into you. The floor is ice.
We have to say, they all sound great, but the iPhone 15 and 14 Pro Max get the loudest volume and highs, whereas the 17 and 16 Pro Max are a tiny bit quieter, but give you clearer audio with a bit more bass. We see you're still with us, but like many other viewers, you might not be subscribed yet. So make sure to punch that subscribe button down here for even more deep reviews. Oh, and if you want to get a closer look at any of these iPhones at the end of the video, we saved you the typing with direct links right in the description below. All right, now let's see what these cameras can deliver. For the main camera, all four iPhones are actually running the same 48 megapixel module with an f1.8 aperture and the same 1/1.28 inch sensor size. Honestly, we don't have any huge differences in photo processing. All photos look good and the detail levels are pretty much spot on. However, indoors, the 14 Pro Max looks just a little more desaturated compared to the rest, which you can notice on skin tones in this indoor shot. Moving to the ultra-wide lenses, the 17 and 16 are rocking 48 48 megapixel cams, but the 15 and 14 only have 12 megapixel ones. However, all four have the same f2.2 aperture and a 120-degree field of view. The 17 definitely has a much warmer white balance and higher saturation levels compared to the rest, which is really interesting. However, while the colors do look pretty similar in all four in indoor scenarios, the 17 Pro Max handles this bright overhead lamp way better than the 14. In portrait mode, the 14 and 15 have the weakest edge detection. The 16 and especially the 17 are much more precise, even separating tiny stray hairs perfectly from the background. When using the telephoto lens for portraits, the 14 is still the weakest, but the 17 also fails to correctly separate the foreground from the background, which is pretty odd. Here, the 16 and the 15 Pro Max are the best ones. For video, the 17 Pro Max and the 16 Pro Max can shoot up to 4K 120 FPS, while the 15 and 14 Pro Max are limited to 4K 60 FPS. But as always, all of our videos here are recorded at 4K 30 FPS. We see similar results to the photos, with the 14 Pro Max having the lowest color intensity, while the 17, 16, and 15 Pro Max all look way more vibrant. Still, overall detail is nice and sharp across all four phones. You can also find 4K 30 FPS cinematic mode on all of them, and it works pretty well on every device with no huge differences. For the ultra-wide video, the maximum recording format is 4K 60 FPS on all of them. Once again, the 14 Pro Max is the odd one out in terms of color. For stabilization, the 17 Pro Max is the best. It's not a night and day difference, but it definitely has less visible shakiness. Up front, the iPhone 17 Pro Max gets a new 18 megapixel camera with a square sensor, whereas the rest have a traditional 12 megapixel camera. Right away, you can tell the 17 Pro Max has a much wider field of view, but other than that though, they all look nearly identical in good light. The biggest differences show up in low light, where the 14 Pro Max seriously struggles with tons of noise and overly cold white balance. For video on the front cam, all four can film at a maximum of 4K 60 FPS.
So now let's test out the audio on all of these devices, and we'll start over here with the 17 Pro Max. Whoops. Oh, sorry about that. Our iPhone just died. But hey, at least we have this right here to save the day. This is the Anker Prime power bank. It's an industry-leading 300-watt multi-port fast-charging power bank with over 26,000 milliamp hour. So that's definitely enough juice to power up these bad boys without breaking a sweat.
As you know, we're always out and about shooting photos and videos, so fast charging is a must for us, especially on days when the sun goes down super quickly like today. This compact beast has a maximum output of 300 watts, plus it has 3 ports. So you can charge everything everywhere all at once. I mean, the maximum output from a single port is 140 watts, which is 40 watts more than what this phone right here supports. We barely even had to wait 10 minutes to power up the phone again because this thing is so fast. So if you want to kill your battery anxiety as well, then be sure to check out the description for some Anker Prime goodies, as they have up to 30% during their Black Friday deals. Oh, and if you're a creator, Anker teamed up with Discovery for the Prime 100 Creator Program. Just upload your coolest media creation for a chance to win an Anker gift box worth over $600 in products. Just search Anker Discovery to get in on the voting and the winning. We didn't find any differences in the recorded audio on the 14, 15, and 16 Pro Max, but the 17 Pro Max does have a slight echo in the low tones. It's not super obvious, but the difference is definitely there. For zoom, we have a bigger variety. The iPhone 17 Pro Max packs a new 48 megapixel periscope telephoto with 4x optical zoom. The 16 and 15 Pro Max have a 12 megapixel periscope telephoto with 5x optical zoom, while the 14 Pro Max only has a 12 megapixel telephoto with 3x optical zoom. Here's how all these phones compare at their native optical zoom distances, and this is how they all look when pushed to 10x digital zoom. Interestingly, the 15 Pro Max has a surprising amount of noise here. The 14 Pro Max maxes out at 15x digital zoom, while the 15 Pro Max and 16 Pro Max can go all the way to 25x. This time, the 16 Pro Max is the one delivering a super noisy shot. The iPhone 17 Pro Max can go all the way up to 40x digital zoom, and honestly, the results aren't too shabby. Alright, let's cover the sun with a finger and check out some low light shots. With the main cameras, it's funny that the 14 Pro Max captures the most shadows, but it also has the most noise. The 17 Pro Max is the cleanest one in that regard. On the ultra ultra-wide cameras, the 17 delivers the most natural-looking shot. The 16 and 15 Pro Max look a bit over-sharpened, and the 14 Pro Max definitely lacks the most detail. In portrait mode, the 17 Pro Max has the best edge detection by far, but oddly, it also has the most amount of noise in the image. Here's the telephoto performance, and we actually prefer how the 17 looks because it doesn't try to lighten up every single shadow like the 16 and 15 Pro Max do. For video with the main camera, there's a tiny bit more detail in the 17 Pro Max, but the difference isn't super noticeable. However, all of them have this weird, sudden white balance change mid-video. Finally, for ultra-wide video, the 17 and 16 Pro Max have higher contrast levels, but they also have the most accurate colors, while the 15 and 14 Pro Max look a bit flatter. So honestly, as you saw, there aren't any huge differences between all these cameras. The main differences lie on the saturation levels, which are slightly higher on the 17 and 16 Pro Max and much lower on the 14 Pro Max. However, the 17 does bring that new selfie camera, which is a major upgrade for versatility. So everything here seems rather similar, but what about the performance? For the synthetic brains, we've got the new A19 Pro chip in the 17, the A18 Pro in the 16, the A17 Pro in the 15, and the A16 Bionic in the 14. For RAM, the 17 comes with 12GB, while the 16 and 15 have 8GB, the 14 only packs 6GB. Also, in case you have forgotten, the iPhone 14 Pro Max still comes with a Lightning port instead of the universal USB-C. Here's a breakdown of the available storage options, types, and USB standards for all four. If you're in the States, you should be well aware that all of these iPhones are eSIM only, but in the rest of the world, all support both eSIM and physical nano SIMs. But to really see what these phones can do, we threw them into some real-world testing, starting with gaming. We ran 15-minute sessions with cooldown time in between. First up, Grid Legends in graphics mode. The game lets the 17 Pro Max hit 40 frames per second, but it caps the others at only 30 FPS. Naturally, the 17 was the best, hitting and maintaining those 40 FPS quite nicely. For heat, all four iPhones were pretty much the same, hitting around 47 degrees Celsius. Next, we launched Wuthering Waves and cranked the graphics all the way up. Again, the 17 Pro Max was the top dog, only dropping to 56 FPS from a perfect 60. For temperatures this time, the 15 Pro Max got a little caliente, hitting 50 degrees Celsius. Moving on from gaming, we exported 99 photos in Lightroom. Even in this test, the iPhone 17 Pro Max came out on top, while the 14 really dragged its feet, taking a full 8 minutes. Next, we rendered a 1-minute 4K 30 FPS video in CapCut. All four iPhones were neck and neck, with the 16 and 15 being the fastest, while the 17 was last by just 3 seconds. But now let's check out some benchmarks. In Geekbench 6, the scores expectedly climbed with each new generation. However, the biggest performance jump in both single and multi-core happened between the 15 Pro Max and the 16 Pro Max. In 3D Mark's Wildlife Extreme Stress Test, it's the same story, the 17 putting up the best numbers. It's worth noting that the 17's lowest score is still pretty close to the 16's best score. In Antutu, it's the usual situation, so this definitely proves that Apple is not kidding when they say they release the most powerful iPhone every single year. There's no doubt about it, the iPhone 17 Pro Max is another big step up in performance. However, the power offered by the 14 Pro Max or the 15 Pro Max is still going to be more than enough for most people. If you're a power user though, both the 16 Pro Max and 17 Pro Max will easily satisfy that need for speed. Now let's switch gears and check out the software side of things. All of these Pro Max phones are currently rocking iOS 26.1. While Apple doesn't give official numbers on software support, iPhones usually get updates for about 7 years. So the 14 Pro Max should technically be covered until around 2029. Across the lineup, you get the cool liquid glass interface with Windows Aero vibes, plus some UI tweaks in apps like the camera and some new personalization options. Now, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is definitely missing out on the most stuff. stuff. You won't find the newer photographic styles, you don't get the handy cleanup tool, and it doesn't have the action or camera buttons either. It also completely lacks Apple Intelligence, so basically Siri will always be giving you plain web search results. The iPhone 17, 16, and 15 Pro Max all get the full Apple Intelligence suite, which includes the new Siri that has built-in ChatGPT integration and visual intelligence for doing searches based on what you point your camera at or what's in your screenshots. Just to note, the 15 Pro Max is still missing that dedicated camera button, but honestly, maybe it's for the better. For all you content creators out there, you get Pro RAW for photos and 4K ProRes for video. The 17 and 16 can shoot at a blazing 120 FPS, but the 15 is capped at 60 FPS, and the 14 is limited to only 1080p 30 FPS in the 128GB configuration, but it can do 4K 30 FPS in the versions with more storage. Both the 16 and 15 have Apple's own Apple Log format, but the 17 Pro Max takes it up a notch with Apple Log 2 and most importantly, ProRes RAW. ProRes RAW captures all the data from the camera sensor, which gives you the absolute maximum flexibility when editing in post. So with that feature overview out of the way, let's move on to our final segment. Of all four, the iPhone 17 Pro Max naturally has the largest battery, though in the version without a SIM tray, the battery is even bigger. Apple never shares wired charging speeds, but for wireless speeds, both the 16 and 17 are the fastest at 25 watts. Now, all support reverse wired charging, but they can only use reverse wireless charging to top up a MagSafe battery pack, and only when that power bank is snapped onto the phone and the phone itself is plugged in with a cable. So, no luck using your iPhone to top up your AirPods wirelessly. In our charging test using a 100-watt charger, the 17 Pro Max showed a massive improvement, reaching a full charge in just 1 hour and 26 minutes. The absolute worst here was the 14 Pro Max, taking a whole 2 hours and 19 minutes. Now, let's talk prices, the most important thing here, because we're not all made of money. Well, the 17 Pro Max will set you back $1,199. The 16 Pro Max, in typical Apple fashion, has been discontinued by Apple, but you can still find it in some carriers for $1,099. The 15 Pro Max is basically only available either used or refurbished, and you can find some mint units at around $800. In the same condition, you can find the 14 Pro Max for around $600, and that's a huge $599 difference between the 17 and the 14 Pro Max. So technically, you can buy two iPhone 14 Pro Maxes with the money of a 17 Pro Max, or maybe just 1.19% of a sealed iPhone 2G. So, all in all, the iPhone 17 Pro Max is clearly the most powerful and featured-packed here. But still, we actually think the iPhone 16 Pro Max is the perfect middle ground. It's got plenty of power, and it's cheaper than the 17 Pro Max. The only catch is actually finding a brand new one, since Apple isn't officially selling it anymore. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is also a killer option, but getting a new one might be even harder. Unfortunately, the iPhone 14 Pro Max misses out on most features and still has the old Lightning port, which makes it incompatible with nearly every other cable everyone uses these days. And before you go, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and hit subscribe, as we're always testing new devices to help you make the best choice. We'll see you in our next video, and until then, take care.
Mira, siento el calor de tu